Your teen requested a ride, but this time not from you. It's through their Uber teen account. You drive your teenager around, a lot, to their friend Jacob's house, their other friend Jake's house, to James's, to Jaden's, to Jalen's, to...
Mom? This is Jake's house, not Jacob's.
Now with an Uber teen account, your teen can request a ride under your supervision. They'll ride with a highly rated driver, and with live trip tracking, you'll follow along the whole ride to their friends' houses that all sound the same. Add your teen to your Uber account today. See app for details.
Bye, Mom.
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate is the world's biggest coffee lover because we love all the ways you enjoy. Wait. Coffee Mate can't love coffee more than me. I'm a foodie. I went to Kyoto just for a nitro matcha latte. What? Oh, I have to finish the ad. Coffee Mate, for the love of coffee.
This episode is brought to you by AutoTrader. Look around. What do you see? Cars. Lots of them. And guess what? They're probably on AutoTrader. Whether you're into timeless classics or the latest trends, if you see it on the road, you can likely find it on AutoTrader. New, used, electric, and one day, maybe even flying cars. See a car? Find it on AutoTrader. Visit autotrader.com to learn more.
You're listening to the Cardiff Central Podcast.
Hello and welcome to Cardiff Central Podcast. I'm Harley as always. Joining me as ever, Carwyn and Dan. How are we doing, gents?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, all good here, Tap.
I definitely didn't get Carwyn mid-bite of a munch of apple for the audio listeners.
No, it wasn't that made me laugh. It was that you said, I'm Harley as always, as opposed to weekly.
Hey, what I get up to in my spare time on the weekend is none of your business. But if you're around the Magic House roundabout, do ask for Louisiana. So we're trying to start with a quick, efficient pod for a new season. I don't even know how I go from there.
Dan, how's your week been?
Well, yeah, less entertaining than Harley's by the sounds of it. But yeah, I've been in Spain last week. No sign of Louisiana anywhere. Looked for her across the whole island of Mallorca. Couldn't find her at all.
Too hot for her. Right. So anyway, I'm glad that your hot, warm weather drinking trainers come to practice, ready for the season ahead.
Yeah, and I went for a run this evening, which was a mistake as well, because I thought, I'll sort of stretch my legs before we do the pod, and then realised that I'm so slow now, so we're starting the pod a bit late because of this and that, so I do apologise.
Seriously, we got the video footage back of the game I played a couple of weeks ago, and I was there thinking, is this checking the playback speed, see if it slowed down? And I actually sped it up, and I still look glacial. Anyway, so we're here more to talk about Cardiff rugby as opposed to what I get up to on the weekends and Dan's running. So we've had some actual rugby play. The Rags went up north to RGC, where it was a fairly convincing win, I'd say. Never looked in doubt. And Dan, do you want to take the lead on this one?
Yeah, first game of Super Rugby Cymru, and Rags went up and nicked it. Well, they were just about ahead, but they nicked it with a try right to the death to secure the victory and steal the losing bonus point off RGC as well. Tom Bowen hat trick. Derry Cross, as is sort of inevitable, got himself on the score sheet. You may as well just pencil his name in before kickoff at this point. And then Joe Goodchild got the one right to the end. I think I was surprised. I think actually that they won. We'd seen through the pre-season friendlies and obviously quite a lot of change and integrating new academy players. I thought it might take a few weeks to really get up and running, and RGC are usually quite a well-drilled outfit up in North Wales. But having seen the highlights on Espedraec on Tuesday night, they scored some really nice tries. Bowen, a real live wire. Elijah Evans looked really good at outside centre, had a hand in 3 of the tries. Some nice link play from Benji Williams. Joe Williams, the replacement scrum half, come on quite early and looked really good as well. I don't think there's never really a massive test up front from RGC. They're never a huge pack. So it's quite often a game that does suit us quite a bit with more running, more playing to width. But yeah, I think if you're Dan Fish on your first outing as head coach of the Rags, you are absolutely chuffed on the million-hour journey back down south.
Yeah, I think, as Dan said, I think there were a couple of surprise results on the weekend. I think the Welsh pods, we did predictions for the games and we said Swansea would beat Quins. They didn't. Aberafon would beat Evervale. They didn't. The only one we called right was Newport. We also thought Cardiff, with what was a younger team perhaps than in previous years, going up to RGC, perhaps aren't used to the travel, as Dan mentioned, might struggle. But, grabbing the win, getting as you said, high scoring and eventful game, as all were, aside from the live Thursday night one on TV, which wasn't. All the others were high scoring games, and I've been quite vocal, very excited about Super Rugby Cymru, and I think it's a positive start for Cardiff, and a positive start for the competition as a whole as well. You're starting with a big game on Thursday night. Okay, it wasn't the highest quality of games between Pontypool and Llandovery, but very competitive, and Llandovery just nicking that one as well. So looks a little bit at the moment like the usual suspects. You see Cardiff, Newport, Evervale, Llandovery all winning. The only exception being Quins, but we'll see how long Quins keep going when all the players and stuff are distributed to the different clubs. Because at the moment, that's probably the one unknown, isn't it? That they don't know. Well, they know who's coming now, but they haven't integrated themselves in. They don't know how good they're going to be. They don't know how they're going to take to the Super Rugby Cymru. So that'll be the interesting thing in the next couple of weeks.
And just to say about that Thursday night game as well, quickly, Pontypool have sacked, or I say sacked, but Pontypool have parted ways with Leighton Jones this week on the back of it. If every team that loses to Llandovery this season sacks their head coach after it, it's going to be the biggest merry-go-round you'll ever see. So I hope that doesn't become a thing.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. That was a very bizarre thing. I was thinking, are you that pissed off with losing to Llandovery? I mean, they did win basically everything for the last couple of seasons. I don't think there's any shame in that one. But that is the past. Moving on to the future. The Rags will be involved in the Thursday night fixture, hosting the Steelmen. So some interesting. So Joe Goodchild scoring that last minute try. He moves on to. He goes from the bench to the starting lineup, and first teamers Evan Daniels and Will Davis King are on bench, starting in front row. Thoughts about this game, Dan?
Tougher test this week, whereas RGC don't tend to have the pack size Ebbw Vale usually do. And that is, we've had some really good games against Ebbw Vale over the last few seasons. Tend to come out on top, I think, just sort of anecdotally, but they not every time. It's not a guaranteed win by any stretch of the imagination. So they'll come down with a pretty big pack again. I noticed they got Sean Parry coming back in at opposite flanker after his Canada exploits. Still got Lewis Young, son of Di, at number 8, and a couple of Adam Williams will be at tight head as well, our former academy prop from last season, who's gone up there this season. So they'll come with a big pack. Evan Lloyd at 10 has got a really good kicking game, marshals him around the pitch really well. Young lad at fullback, Matt Jones, coming out of the Bristol Academy for them as well, one to keep an eye on. So yeah, tough game. Weather's looking pretty good on Thursday night at the Arms Park, so that'll suit us, I think. A dry evening, chance to really run, move their pack around a bit. Particularly interested to see how Josh Thomas goes at fly half. Looked, by all accounts, pretty good against Ealing when he played for the first team. Has trained full-time with the first team this pre-season after coming down from Newcastle, but is a Rags player, sort of James Ratty-esque from a couple of years ago. But yeah, I think him coming in, Steph Emmanuel coming in at 12 as well. It's a much younger backline with Emmanuel coming in for Jason Harris, who I think it drops the average age down quite significantly when you lose 35-year-old Jason Harris. But yeah, I think it'd be a good game, and if they can recreate some of the running rugby they obviously showed up at Carwyn Bay, then hopefully it'll be a positive result for the Rags.
Yeah, it's about that getting the width and getting all those classics, earn the right to play and all that sort of stuff. But it's not quite a total forwards versus backs game, but it has a little bit of a vibe of it. I think Cardiff will look to get the ball up wide. You look at the tens comparatively, Josh versus Evan. Evan, as Stan said, very good kicking 10 for Ever Vale. Can control a game really well if he's given the chance to and given the opportunity to. Josh, probably more of a running threat. Definitely more of a running threat, if I'm honest. And then you add in that back line with Steph, Elijah, Tom Bowen, Dewi, as you mentioned, and Joe. That's a really threatening back line that can cause real problems. I don't know though about this. I think Ever Vale this early in the season is a tough one because I think this Cardiff side is going to grow into the season. I'd be surprised if similar perhaps to what I was saying at the start of last season for the regional side, is that I'd expect them to be better at the end of the season than they were at the start of the season because they'd grow into it, become more developed. You guys like Steph Emmanuel, and there's no secret about that. That's what's likely to happen. But I think it'll be a really big one for the front row this week, because you look at that front row, these are guys who are going to have to step up during the season. Without doubt, Rhys Barrett at some stage is going to be playing for the regional side when Domachowski's gone. Evan Daniel, if Evan Lloyd goes, and then Will Davis-King, if Azarati goes, are likely to be there or thereabout in the 23. So up against an experienced, semi-experienced front row for Ever Vale with Joe Frankie on the bench and boys like that, that's a big test. And I think that's one that will stand them in good stead for the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a reminder, if you want to go watch that, it's at Cap at 7:30 kickoff tonight as this pod goes out. If not, it'll be on S4C. So, and it is included in the Cardiff Rugby season tickets. I honestly don't know what the cost is on the doors. So the only times I've been able to go to Rags games usually is when I have a season ticket as well.
I think you can buy them in advance now on the Cardiff Rugby ticket is the best way to do it. I think they're £12.
Yeah, there you go.
So, if they're more expensive than that, I'm not paying the difference.
So Dan is absolutely paying the difference if they are more than that. Right, before we move on to the senior side, just a quick plug to say, if you are enjoying if you do enjoy this podcast and some of our interviews, such as the ones we've done with Gruff Reese and Richie Holland, please like and subscribe and leave us a review. Also, why not check out the Rap YouTube channel and put a subscribe there? So we're trying to push to 1,000 subscribers this year. Ambitious, but we, just to fame an old trio of very old fashioned men. Ambitious but rubbish. Anyway, that's my ripping off Top Gear. So the senior section kick off the URC. We are going to be the opening fixture. Well, coached with Edinburgh Leinster, but let's be fair, kids about that. So we are hosting Zebre. So it was a very close affair out in Palma last season with us just about clinging on to a draw. So Zebre, although they've had lots of changes, they're now all Italian based. So they have no foreign players, and they're all, it's definitely been fixed even more as a youth side. This has got to be a 5-point win for us, surely.
Yeah. I hesitate to ever back us to beat Zebre. I don't know why. We've got like a mental block or something. But on paper, if it's not a 5-point win, it's probably gone wrong somewhere. But I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago when we were sort of previewing the season as a whole. I do think this is probably one of the biggest games we've had for a little while, really, for Cardiff. On the basis of it sets the season up really well. You can't ask for better than Zebre home on the first weekend if you're looking to get a win under your belt and really kick on from there. And that could come back to bite me, but I think most teams would say the same thing about that. Is that if you want to get off to a winning start, Zebre home, and you had to pick one fixture, every other team in the league is probably going to pick Zebre home for that. So we've got that this year. It's a game where we have tied ourselves up in knots a bit over the years. I think we've at times come out and been thinking too much about the try bonus points and put too much pressure on ourselves to score early on, and then sort of got weighed down under the pressure of that when it hasn't gone quite right. There's been games where we've gone ahead quite early and then sort of taken a foot off the steam a little bit as well, and not really pushed on to the performance it should have been. But yeah, I mean, you look at the Zebre squad now, it's probably worse than it has been for a couple of years, and they've been the worst team in the league for all of those years. So it's difficult to say that they're going to come and really cause any threat. I think it's mostly about getting out of our own way in order to sort of free ourselves up and come out really fast, play well from the start, put a couple of points on the board early, and then see where we go from there.
Yeah, I agree with most of what Dan said, apart from, I think, Cardiff probably the one side of the league that wouldn't choose Zebre. They'd probably choose Dragons at home as their preferred fixture, but that's but no, that's unfair on the Dragons. I think they are going to be better this year. But I do think, yeah, you have to look at it as a win, first of all, is a must, and then a bonus point win is more than desired, really. It's definitely one where I feel like there's a bit of deja vu talking about last season, where it was important to get off to a tough start because we thought Benetton were going to be a strong side this year, whereas last year, and they were, and it could have been nip-and-tuck between the two sides. This year, I think, it's a great springboard for momentum, a great opportunity to start well. Obviously, if you win by 40 points, which I don't think will happen, but hypothetically win by 40 points, you don't know where you're going to be for the rest of the season. It's important not to get carried away. But I do think there's enough about this Cardiff side to get a strong win on the board, especially when you think the majority of the star players are probably going to turn out. There aren't that many injuries. There are probably one or two players perhaps undercooked in terms of match fitness and season preparation. But overall, it should be a confident and comfortable performance. But yeah, on a Friday night in Cardiff, who knows? But yeah, I back them. Famous last words that I haven't said on the Welsh Rugby Pod that we didn't get any of the predictions right. Here we go. It's a Zebre 60-point win, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when we were discussing this on the wrap, and the same thing came up. Surely this is the one team every team wants. And I went, yeah, but Zebre are also the team that tend to have their best game of the season, the first game up, and they seem to catch a lot of people napping. They've had so many nearly upsets. It just sort of shits me. Again, I would rather have Dragons because I feel like they won't have had as much time to bed in all their new changes. So it'd been. Plus, I feel like those young Zebre lads are going to be buoyant, albeit a very young Glasgow side, but nilling them 31-0 at home. That's a bit of a confidence boost. So I appreciate pre-season means nothing. As Jamie likes to point out, Dragons were beaten pre-season and they had that season. Anyway, so what do you want to see from this cast based on the performances last year? What key things do you want to do? So obviously we want the win, we want ideally a bonus point, but what parts of the game, the performance, are we looking to see that we've improved from last season?
2 points for me, I think, is more statistical ones, but after pre-season, I think I'd love to see us cut down our error count. Too many handling errors. Jockey talked a bit about cohesion stuff, which is a fair point. We've got new guys in there, but they've trained together a little while now, and we've had 2 pre-season games and a condition training against the Ospreys this week. So I'd love to see us cut our error count down and cut our penalty count down. And if you keep both of them down, you're more than likely to win games every week. But I think it's particularly on the penalty count aspect, we've got a chance to get up and running with quite a low penalty count this weekend. If we're, you don't have to force things necessarily against Zebre. There's no requirement to go chasing turnovers. There's no requirement to make miracle spot blitzes or interceptions. They'll play quite wide. They'll play quite loose. They always do. They'll play fast. But if you're disciplined in your defensive line and you've got the line speed and the organization, they will make errors. You can force them into making repeated errors, and where they play quite wide, there will be natural turnover opportunities as well, where they leave themselves isolated. So if we can keep that penalty count down in week 1 and start to rebuild a reputation as not one of the most penalised teams in the league, then, not to get into any sort of refereeing conspiracy, but I think just naturally for referees, if they're looking at who they're refereeing this weekend and they see that Cardiff is the top 3 most penalised sides, there's sort of an unconscious element of that then when you go into the game. So if we can break that early and become a team that isn't recognised as a side that concedes the most penalties, then that'll be great for us. So yeah, those are two. In terms of like how we play, we know what Cardiff will do. They'll play the way Cardiff do under Matt Sherratt. There's unlikely to be any surprises there. But if we can keep that penalty and error count down, then it'll help us this week and into the season generally.
Yeah, I agree with those, obviously, but the big one for me is more not necessarily consistency across the 80, although that is part of it. But last season there were quite a lot of 10-minute just headless periods where it happened particularly at the start of the season against Benetton. There was a headless 10 minutes. There was a couple of other games where there was just a period where anything that could go wrong went wrong, and it seemed like the classic football thing of put your foot on the ball and just control it and keep it for 5 minutes. There didn't seem to be anyone saying that, and I think that's the big one for me this season, is that if things do go wrong for 2 or 3 minutes, that's where it stops. That it doesn't carry on to considering 3 tries or 2 tries and a penalty. It stops at 1 try, and then hold on, lads, let's just play in the right areas. Let's have a calm heads. Let's sort things out. Like I do think things like having another option at 10 helps that. Someone who's possibly watching from the sideline can go, hold on a sec, like we've lost our heads here. I just need to calm everyone down and put. Last season there was only 1 option, so I think that's going to be a positive. The other big one is I'm interested to see what happens with the back row. I really am, because I don't know what is the best option to begin with. If you were to tell me what the best trio is at Cardiff, I couldn't tell you. Whereas I feel like I could say that for the other 3 regions. I don't think I could say for Cardiff at this moment in time. And I do think it'll be a horses for courses. I'm interested to see what you guys think, but I would have thought, given what Dan says about Zebre wanting to play wide and things, you want to have a 7 who's going to be out there in the wide channels prepared to sort of track like a Thomas Young sort of character. But then again, do you then look at the other side of it where, hold on, we could get forward dominance here and be a bit stronger and be a bit tougher and be a bit bigger and have Dan Thomas in? But Matt Sherratt's the guy with the keys and we'll know all those answers. But that's something that I'm interested in.
So yeah, I think we'll go into we'll do a particular squad 23. The one thing I wanted to add is, for me, considering how well even last season and certainly during pre-season the driving ball's going, it seems like we've got a decent unit there. For me, the one thing is, can we make sure that line-out stops having its random game where it just falls completely to pieces? On a similar note, for the scrum, so Cardiff being we've always been a team to get it in, get it out and play. Would you like to see them being a bit more attacking with it to try and win penalties, or are you happy with the fact that we're just keep our own ball, don't concede on opposition?
I think that comes ideally, yeah. Everyone would love to get a penalty advantage every time and play from that, but that it feeds slightly into what I was saying about the defence and not going chasing. In the risk is, if you try and get the shove on at the scrum, and then desperation to do that, you lose your shape as a front row. The referee could quite easily just penalise you for stepping out or stepping round, or going straight down if you lose control of your body weight completely. And I'm not sure we necessarily need to do that against Zebre. So if it's there and the whoever the scrum leader is, if Belcher's going to call it from hook or whatever, says let's squeeze, go for it, or if the scrum half says we've got a bit of a shove on, let's go for it. I'm not averse to that, but we've got enough strength in the backs that we can score tries without that penalty advantage. So you don't need to go chasing that necessarily. If the ball is there to be played and it's easy to get out, then I think 9 times out of 10 you look at your backs and say, yeah, let's give them the ball and get on with it.
100%, and especially when I would say Cardiff have been one of the more imaginative sides of first phase, and particularly line out, perhaps more so line out than scrums actually in the last season. But you look at that and you've got guys like Josh Adams and Mason Grady, especially Josh Adams runs brilliant lines off set piece. So how can you take advantage of those opportunities? And you've got a brilliant link player like Ben Thomas. That's the perfect opportunity to let them loose and give them the opportunity. I think, I 100% get it in and get it out would be my port of call. And I think you've got someone like Alec Davis who's got a lovely pass on it and you get perhaps a bit more width on it as well. I just really like that option rather than, as Dan says, gambling when it's possibly not the strength on paper. Azarati, who is an international tight end by now, I wouldn't class him as a dominator in the scrum. He's more of a hold it steady and keep it up. There's a lot to be said about that. That's Thomas Francis has earned a living of it. So I think that's something which I would advocate. To be honest, I think as Dan said.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we move on to, do you want to do predictions for the game or predictions for the team first?
Team, because I feel like team will feed into game.
Yeah.
There you go. So our patented 100% wrong or double your money back team predictions are back for the first one of the season. So should we go 15-9? So I think 15's pretty much inked in now with Cam win it as long as he's fit.
Yeah, he's fit as far as I'm aware. Beetham's injured, so yeah, it's pretty no-brainer, I think, that one. Although it was interesting that Matty Young, I'm not going to read too much into Rags selections with first team because I think with the Rags being on a short week, there was quite a few predetermined changes there. But Matty Young played quite well against RGC, and he's not involved at all against Ebbw Vale now. So I don't know, maybe they might hand him one, but yeah, I'd be surprised if it wasn't winning.
Yep. All right. Carwyn, do you want to do pick the wings?
That's tough, isn't it? Because I think this was one that was tough in preseason. I would like to see. I don't know. I'd like to see Josh back. Obviously, and the sooner the better. With that, I don't know.
He's definitely not fit this weekend.
So, yeah. Don't know why I started on that trip. He's not fit, but I would like to see, if he was fit, I'd like to see him. But then I think you're probably looking at it's difficult. I'm going to throw it to you actually.
Yeah, just to interject on while you're thinking, Jockey in his press conference today spent quite a lot of time talking about Ewan Stevens. Just saying he's come in and he's been the player that he thought he was going to be from the tape at Newcastle. He's quick, brave in the air, works hard, decent finisher as well, obviously, but quite good in defence for a small bloke. And the other thing I was going to say is I did notice they put a training video out from Tuesday's session, and there was a brief backline clip, and the backline in that clip was Alec Davis, Callum Sheedy, Ben Thomas, Ray Lilo, and then Stevens and Grady on the wings. Don't know. That might just have been in that drill. That's how they lined up. But it also might be the team. I don't know. I don't know if they're just going to tease us all season with random training videos of differing lineups. But I think the interesting thing is there is no bad decision really on the wing. Let's be fair, we've got quite a lot of good wingers, but it's somebody was saying to me, you could go Grady and Hamer Webb, but they're two of the sort of more physical guys, and Jockey said that he likes one physical and one nippier guy. So I think Cabango's injured, Adams is injured, so I think you're looking at probably one from Grady and Hamer Webb on one side, and then one from Millard and Stevens on the other side. I think, and then obviously the question is Grady 13 or on the wing then in the team as well? That's the other thing to consider when wings.
Do we want to pick our centres first then, and then come back to the wings once we decide who 12 and 13 is? Well, Ben Thomas is fit, so he's 12. So I mean that's sorted. But 13, do we thinking Grady or Lilo?
Well, from what Dan was saying, and you just have that small about just defend well and you'll be fine. Lilo, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything. But then again, you look at it flip side. If you're going to test the Grady at 13 thing, when better than Zebre? And I would like to see Gabe Hemmerwebb involved. I was thinking of him probably more as a 23 because I think ideally I'd like to see Grady and Hamer Webb on the wings this week, but I know that's not going to happen because of what Sherrod said is his preference, and there's a lot to be said for that. So if you're going to go with it, then I would say probably you're looking at Grady at wing and Lido in the centre. But
I think it comes down to are we picking what we want to see, or are we picking what we think Jockey will do? Because if it's what I want to see, I probably want to see Grady at 13. But if it's what I think Jockey will do, I think he might not play it safer, but I think he'll just go Lilo at 13, Grady on the wing, and just sort of be a bit more sensible, maybe is the way of saying it, from the start, and go from there.
It's mad to say you're picking a 37-year-old as sensible.
But the one thing I would say is Grady was very good in the 13 channel defensively during that last block of the fixtures last year. So are we happy? Is Jockey happy that he's in that system? He's bedded in. It's Gethin Jenkins. The only change to defence coach is Gethin Jenkins is now full time, so he's had that little bit more time to work with him.
Sorry, go on.
It is a democracy, so if you two want to go Grady 14, Lilo 13, I'm happy with that.
The point isn't that Grady isn't great defensively. The point is that Lilo is. I think that's the argument. It's not. We're not. I'm not going to name names, but we're not comparing to an average centre here. We're comparing to a very, very good defensive centre, one of probably up there in the league in terms of defense, especially defensive capability. So that's the difficulty for Grady, is you're going to look at that as his obvious work on, because he's a young lad still learning his craft, and he's up against a guy who's an expert in it and isn't learning his craft anymore because he's perfected it. So I think I'd say Lilo at 13 and Grady on the wing. As much as I'd love to see Aim Webb from the start, but yeah, that's what I think will happen.
And just to finish it on a positive note for Grady on the wing, I think one reason why you might choose to do that, not just about Lilo starting, but the other thing about Zebre is it is usually quite a transitional game. They will knock on a bit, they'll try and kick him behind a little bit as well, and there is space to counter-attack. And so if they kick loosely and Grady gets 5 yards of space on that wing to run it back, he could leave some splattered Italian men all over the floor and score some cracking tries or make a lot of meters. So that might be an attacking thinking of, let's see if they want to try and kick at Grady, or if they're going to lose the ball and then Grady's already on the wing in space. That is the counter-attacking option.
Right, so we'll go win at 15, Grady 14, Lilo 13, Ben Thomas 12. I think we agree he's playing there. And then should we go? I'm going to go Ewan Stevens, since he's been name-checked a lot by Jockey for 11.
Yeah, I'm also.
And actually, I thought he's very good against Bath. Saw that try in the first half. Oh, wonderful finish.
Yeah, and in the continued Harry Millard debate, Harry Millard is listed as a centre on the website as well. Just to add further.
Matthew Morgan used to be
he's a winger.
Matthew Morgan used to be a fly half, is all I would say on the website.
Yeah, but that was at the time when we played dual fly halves at 10 and 15, so it's fine. Halfbacks going Sheedy and Alid. Any questions? Any arguments? Well, and then De Beer, and I've got De Beer and Mulder penciled in on the bench.
Dan was so unsure about answering that. He went through puberty.
There's just something in me that thinks, just give it Mulder and De Beer from the start and see what happens. Because, I just think, just to clarify, in case anyone's not aware, Ellis Bevan's injured, so we're not discussing him. But, but there's just I just got something about Mulder. I don't know. I think he's sneaky, one to watch, breakout potential kind of player. He was quite good in pre-season by all accounts, and watched quite a lot of him in his last Currie Cup campaign. And yeah, he just kind of looks quite good. And it's sort of weird one, because when De Beer came over, he was like the best player in the Currie Cup that season. He was being chased by the South African URC teams, and it was like, okay, we've got. He's unknown, but he's coming over with a bit of credit behind him from South Africa. Whereas Mulder's come over, he's played for a fairly mid-table Currie Cup team in the Grickers. He's had this short-term spell at Lions, but never really played. So you're sort of thinking, like, where the hell have we found this guy? Like, who is he? But watch him play, and he's quick. He's, you know, he likes to attack the fringes. He's a bit physical. He's got a bit of zip on the ball, and I think is again like with the centre selection, Lilo and Grady is like Jockey might think, oh, let's just be sensible and Alid and Sheedy from the start, and you know, try and start quickly with some good decisions early doors, and then unleash Mulder and De Beer. But there's a little devil on the shoulder that says, go for chaos from the start and see what happens.
Have you been hanging out with Rob Howley again?
Yeah, I'm sort of surprising myself. I think I'd like to see Mulder and De Beer from the start. I don't know if Dan's converted me here, but no, I think the reason is because I'd like to see the steady hand for the final 20. And I'm thinking of it more as in that 2019 bigger off the bench approach. That's how I see it, rather than the traditional, I don't know, I can't think of a good example off the top of my head, but maybe James Hook off the bench, chaos are up sort of approach that was the traditional approach, perhaps of having a steady Eddie 10 and steady Eddie 9, and then you bring on the nippers in the final 20. But yeah, I think I'd rather see, just in case, you've got the safety blanket of turning to Sheedy and saying, hey mate, like, as I said earlier, it's all gone to chaos for the last 5 minutes. Can you go on and just put your foot on the ball, get us sit down in the right areas, play in the right areas, and control the game? Because I think that could do us good on the first week of the season. Just get the win over and done with. But yeah, that I think that would be my approach, which is surprising myself given my.
I considered myself outvoted on that one. I didn't think this would be much argument there. But I suppose, to be fair, part of the reason we signed Alec Davis for the Jockey was to, as that's chip steadying, someone experienced to come off the bench anyway. So,
are we seeing this as just as pairings? Like, is it as straightforward as Dwayne Peel and Stephen Jones versus Mike Phillips and James Hook was? Is it that straightforward as in those two go together and those two go together and there's no mixing and matching? Because what happens when Bevan comes back? Is he Sheedy camp?
Yeah, it's interesting to say that, actually, because where you said that, actually, I think the pairing, the players in there that suit each other the best are probably Mulder and Sheedy. In terms of Mulder being a bit quicker, getting the ball out, having that threat in the fringes, which gives the 10 a little bit more space. Sheedy likes to go to the line then and play, whereas De Beer, he will carry to the line, but I think naturally he likes to play a little bit deeper, not Priestland deep, but a little bit deeper. And so then you would say probably Davis and De Beer are better in that sense, but then De Beer is probably not quite as good. Like, overall, I love De Beer. I think everybody does. But overall, I think Sheedy's probably a better game manager and a better attacker than De Beer is. He's just a better player overall, I think, when push comes to shove. So, yeah, Sheedy is probably the top with both of them, or all three of them, really, with Bevan as well. But maybe it's just a sort of natural thing for week one of teaming the South Africans together, because they both speak Afrikaans and presumably they must be mates because they're both from the same countries.
Well, I think they have played
together.
I do think they have actually played together at some point or another.
I assume they probably grew up together, and they're friends on Facebook or something. Everybody in South Africa knows everybody else.
I'm pretty sure Timus De Beer's mum or wife follows us, because we always get liked on Facebook by Mrs. De Beer.
The other thing I would just say quickly as a serious point about the halfbacks as well is that I think over the next few weeks, it's probably, you look ahead and it's probably more Davis / Bevan and Sheedy territory in the Scarlets games, away at Edinburgh, Glasgow potentially as well, where I agree with what Carwyn said there. My preference is always to go and play your attacking guys and win the game and then bring your managers on, rather than try and manage 60 and then bring them on for the last 20. I think that's almost inherently more risky because you're putting a lot of emphasis on that final quarter of the game. But just to look at the sort of these first 5 games of the season as a whole, you could end up just starting Sheedy in particular every week if you're looking for the sort of more experienced and slightly better game manager and consistency of kicking. Because there are, two big derbies. Glasgow home is one they might target, is eminently winnable as just a home game. Edinburgh away is just a tough place to go generally, so it's always windy there somehow. So you might be looking for your guy who's slightly better off the boot. So maybe on a game management level, with Sheedy having not played a huge amount of rugby over the last 2 years, you might suggest that he just eases himself in off the bench for this one, and then we'll see where we are next week.
Yeah, so just jumping in on that, the counter argument to that is obviously it's actually counterintuitively easier to control if he starts how much game time he has.
Yeah, no, that's true.
That's the counter argument. That's the if you have him on the bench, and he has to come in on game minute 10. The RG Sneeman, whatever it was, the situation. So I think they need to manage him though as well. Coming to that point, I do think they need to manage Sheedy because he does need a bit of dipping in and out, considering his injury record hasn't been perfect the last couple of seasons, and especially recently.
Absolutely. So we say so final.
Sorry, after all that,
we're sticking with Mulder and De Beer, but with like a number of asterisks attached.
Yeah, if Sharrett can answer all our questions, that'd be great. Cheers, mate.
Asterisks of if De Beer gets injured before minute 55, Ben goes to 10, and we'll bring somebody else on.
Right. So let's go to the real pretty boys and the workhorses in the pack. Front row, the full Ronda front row for you guys.
Yeah, probably for me. Definitely Belcher. You want to start the first one as captain, and then I don't see why you wouldn't have Dom and Azza in there as well if they're fit. To be honest, there is a chance to bring a couple of guys in potentially. Litterick might benefit from a start, or see what Ed Byrne can do. But I just kind of think go for them.
I think start thing.
Yeah,
start with that. Carwyn, do you want to say anything, or are you just swallowing a bee?
No, so I'm just thinking. I think I'd possibly not go that front row. I quite like to see Litterick. I don't think Litterick will start, but I would like to see him get a start. And I'd like to see Ed Byrne and Evan Lloyd, but I've been outvoted, so that's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. We'll have them as the bench. It's fine. Right.
Yeah, so make it a streamliner.
Second row. This is where things are both quite feel predictable, but also quite interesting as well when we get on. Well, for when we get on to 6, but I've got written down Josh McNally and Teddy Williams. I think they're probably our best 2 starting locks.
Well, Seb's out. Do you know?
Still naughty boy step. He's still on naughty step, isn't he?
No, he should be. Assuming he's managed to graduate tackle school, he should have been back for this.
We've watched Seth Davis a while. I wouldn't put it past him.
Maybe he's failed his exam. I don't know, but I think he was listed as injured rather than suspended. But I don't know. That's presumably a training injury that he's picked up. So. But I think the only question mark is Donnell maybe, but for me it's just because also they sound like a funny Scottish man together. You're gonna have Teddy McNally.
Yep, love it. All right then, back row. This is the one where I think we're gonna use up a lot of time debating. I said I wasn't sure if I saw right. Is Thomas Young back?
No, Thomas Young's out.
So for me, that means Dan Thomas is our set. It starts at 7. And then I've got Mackenzie Martin at 8. And then 6, I can't pick between both. I've got both and Donald or Man. And I can't work out which one.
Man's out as well.
There you go. That's it. That's great. So now I pick. So you can have Donald or both, and the other one's on the bench. That makes life so much easier.
I feel Dan's going to agree with what I'm going to say.
Go on then. You can have both at 7.
No, I'm having both of them at 8.
Yeah, I was going to say the
same. Works for me.
Just to annoy Harley.
That's a gut feeling one. Also, a little bit of the clips they've put of Jockey's press conference today. He speaks quite a lot about talking to Mackenzie Martin about, you're not going to get picked every week, and there's going to be peaks and troughs this season. It's not going to be all in, which. I might have put 2 and 2 together and made 10 on that, but it looks to me like he's had a chat with Mackenzie Martin this morning and basically said, or the morning of the press conference, they might have been yesterday, and said, "Listen, mate, you're not starting this weekend. I'm going with both of them at 8." And I could see that, to be honest. I think Donnell, Thomas, Botham is a pretty good back row to take on Zebre in terms of matching physicality and athleticism.
Yeah. I just
Sorry, Harley.
Yeah. I mean, the one spanner that works in for 8 then is, what about Alan Lawrence? Would he get feature for you then?
Who's left? Thornton, I suppose. Is he fit? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, you could.
As far as I'm aware, I don't think he's picked anything up.
Yeah, with you could theoretically have Lawrence and Martin if you were going 5-3. You could have Lawrence in 19 and Martin at 20, and then you can use Donnell as your second row cover from flanker, and Lawrence as an emergency second row if really shit at the fan. I wouldn't be opposed to that necessarily. But I think the thing with Big Al is, I think we're all massive fans of him. I think everybody who watched him in those final games of the season are massive fans of him. Whenever he plays, he's going to give you probably 7 out of 10. But ultimately, we do have such good back row strength that he is going to be a bit part player. Like, he's not going to play every week in the same way that when Rory Jennings is fit, he'll be a solid player, but there'll be other options ahead of him at 12, and same for somebody like Harry Millard, who will always do a job when called upon in the back 3, but he'll be somewhere down the pecking order as well. So I think likelihood is that unless there's injuries or guys away, then we're not going to see a huge amount of Dav Hughes, Alan Lawrence, Rory Jennings, Harry Millard. They are going to be squad players.
Yeah, absolutely. I just thought I'd throw the spanner in the works since you decided to shit on my Big Mac idea.
I like it, but I don't think it's going to happen. I do like.
No, I agree. If it's not going to be Mac, I'd probably put both of them as the man. If it's not going to be him, bench then I think pretty much picks itself. So replacement front row, we've got Evan Lloyd, Ed Byrne, and Rhys Listrick.
Yeah,
I think that's. I mean, with Will Davis King down, Joe Carroll still new to tight head, and Evan Daniel being playing for the Reds this tomorrow or tonight as we're recording, as we're listening. It's basically it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, the only maybe question, which I'll go with Ed Byrne, but you could, in a game which is a bit more open and will be a bit looser in the last quarter, Danny Southworth might be the replacement loosehead option potentially. But I think just because we've signed these guys for experience and seeing out games in the last quarter, then it probably will be Ed Byrne.
Yeah, that's basically the sort of rationale I was thinking of there. Go on.
I wouldn't be against Ed Byrne starting in Southworth on the bench, actually, and giving Doma an extra week. Just, I don't think it's a one where you need Doma, whereas I do think there's going to be several games this season where Cardiff need Doma. So that'll be my argument on that one.
Fair enough. But once again, you've been outvoted.
Yeah. I'm not going to try that,
Yeah. So then 1920, we thinking Big Al and Big Mac, or Thornton if he's fit, and have an out and out second row. Yeah. And again, slowing the game down, having a good line out, someone who can run the line out well.
Yeah, I think Thornton and Mac is the most likely option there. I wouldn't be against Big Al getting on there somewhere, but I think if you're going percentage wise, it's probably Thornton and Mac.
Yeah, I think we're all sort of feeling 5-3s as opposed to 6-2s this season. I feel like if we had one more lock.
Not necessarily every game. I think 6-2 is quite often going to be the best option for us. But against Zebre, I go 5-3, just where it's a quicker game.
I meant for this particular week. I feel like we
yeah.
Thing. And then the backs cover, we're going Davis and Sheedy, and then who's going to be that number 23? Do we think?
I'm going to say Hamer Webb because I said it earlier.
Yeah. I like Gabe. I'll be honest, I had him penciled in as a starter. To be honest, I quite like what he has to offer. Not as much as Dan like Gabe, but
I like what he has to offer as well.
So just going through 15 to 9.
I'm standing. What a great. It's lovely. I'm sorry. Just
Let's say. Oh,
I was being outvoted
Right,
on everything else being the minority, so I thought I'd steer into the skid with it,
yeah. Anyway, so our predicted match day 23. So bit of a shot for everyone we get wrong. Can win it. Mason Grady, Ray Lilo, Ben Thomas, Ewan Stevens, Tina Stabia, Mulder. Then we've got Domachowski, Belcher, Azarati, McNally, Teddy Williams, Ben Donnell, Dan Thomas, Jim Botham. Then on bench we've got Evan Lloyd, Ed Byrne, Reese Littrick, Rory Thornton, Big Mac, Alan Davis, Callum Sheedy, and Gabe Hamer-Webb. Right, so that sounds like a 23. We might actually not get too many of those wrong, to be honest. Partially just because there are a few injuries in the one place in the few debates. So predictions for this game then. I predicted on wrap that Cardiff would win by 5, but both teams probably get try bonus points. I think that should be quite open.
We're going to go Cardiff by a bit more. I'm going to say Cardiff by I don't know how much is too much. Striking the tone between.
Well, 15 would get you 2 points in the SRC.
Yeah, I had 20 in my mind. I'm going to take Cardiff by 20.
I'd go just a bit less, somewhere between 15 and 18.
Are you going to nail a number, or do you want the range?
I'm on the range, mate.
Do you want to do the average of it?
I'll go 16. Cardiff by 16.
Cool. Right. Time is running short, but we do have a little bit of time to talk about the other game. One of the other big games happening on Friday night. That is Wales women are hosting Australia before they play Australia in 8 days after that in WXC2. Just because I wanted to highlight how fucking ridiculous a fixture that is. But so the team's out. It's certainly a list of 23 names. No Alcal, Hannah Jones, and Keris Phillips are allegedly rested. Thoughts, expectations on this one? So Australia were beaten pretty handily in their last fixture. But also
it is blinking ridiculous, isn't it? Sorry, I know Harley's alluded to it and wants to sweep by it, but it is bloody ridiculous. Imagine if you went into a football World Cup and said, "Oh, we're going to prepare for our group games against Algeria, USA, and I can't remember who else England had in that 2010 campaign, but whoever it was, and then by playing USA, Algeria, it's just ridiculous. Like you never see it. So, yeah, bonkers. That's the first thing. But I think Australia's loss last week was more of a highlight of where Ireland are and how Ireland have improved rather than a massive drop-off from Australia. I don't think I'd expect Australia to have a bit of a kickback this week. And yeah, Wales don't have their strongest side out. I think that's evident because they're trying different players, and that's good to see. A few different names. Rosie Carr, good to see her getting an opportunity, one of the twins. A few other players in the background, nice to see Nell Metcalf back. Interested to see how the centres go. Cox has normally, when she's dropped into the centres, played as a 12, so going as a 13 would be interesting. Alongside Hannah Bluck, who are both probably truck it up players a little bit. Although Caris can get on the outside and run it a bit more. I want to see more of that from her because she's got the pace. She plays wing, but whenever I've seen her play 12, she has just trucked it up rather than look for a bit of using her pace a bit more. But I got to say, I do fancy Australia for this one. I think last year was the year to be Australia, and it seems as if both sides have had very different trajectories. Australia seems to have pushed on a bit more, and Wales have dropped off a bit, despite last week's loss against Ireland for Australia.
I didn't see any of the Scotland warm-up game the other week, and I was going to watch it back, and then I saw the score and thought I can't be bothered with that. So, but I think just on a wider note, I think they obviously named the 30-player squad for WXV, which this 23 comes from, and there is some weird selections or non-selections. There should be. I think I think the main one, and might be able to start a hashtag of this, is where's Gwen and Hopkins? Like, what's happened there? No one seems to know. A couple of the Cardiff Quins people seem to be unsure as well. So it doesn't seem like injury. It just seems non-selection, which is odd at best. They bring Gwen Crabb back against Scotland after a long injury layoff and then immediately don't take her, which feels a little bit harsh. I maybe, if she's not fully fit and, you have to, I think 30 players that's a World Rugby mandated. You can only take 30 players to the competition thing. It's not a WRU selection. So, yeah, if somebody's not going to be able to play more than one game, I can understand it, but it does feel a little bit like come back and have a taste of it and then piss off again for 6 months. And then just I don't understand Kaylee Powell going as the backup fly half primarily. I think she is still our best fullback. And so I'm not Robin Wilkins seems to have fallen out of favour a bit there, and so I don't think Powell. We see the best of her at 10 certainly. And I just think overall it is quite a big campaign for Johan Cunningham, the WXV one, in that they were obviously awful in the Six Nations, bit more convincing against Spain, but if they has an unconvincing WXV2 campaign here, it might be the time for a change. If you're looking at, next year's a big year, Six Nations, they'll need to bounce back going into the World Cup then at the end of the year. If they come back from South Africa in this WXV2 campaign with no wins, then the questions document will be a lot longer than the positives document, I would suggest.
Can I just to jump in on a couple of things Dan said? The one thing I would say about someone like Gwen and also Gwen Crabb, is you look at that back five of the squad that's been selected, and with the exception of maybe Aloe Pierce, and nothing against Aloe Pierce, very good player, but the others are all established, and I wouldn't look at any of them and say that's an obvious weak link. You're talking Butchers, Bryony King, Callender, Kate Williams, Georgia, Beth Lewis, Natalia John, Fleming. They're all very, very good players. Yes, I think we all know Gwen and Hopkins is the future, if not the current. So it is one of those where you go, coming up 31. I think that would be a little bit of the point I would be making there. But and obviously the area Wales are slightly light there is probably second row, which Pierce offers a little bit, but Gwen doesn't currently. Although in her 17-year career that she's bound to have for Wales, she may dip into the second row at the end. But I agree with the other point. It is a huge campaign, I think, for Cunningham. I think there are lots of questions to be had about not so much team selection, but the team rotation and whether the right team is being picked for the right game. I think that's a question I have, because I think there's certain games I've gone in thinking, okay, we need to do X, Y, Z, and then we've picked 3 sevens in the back row, and it seems to contradict what, say we want to dominate at the front and we've picked 3 sevens in the back row, or we've picked centres who haven't played with each other before, or it just seems a lot of inconsistency and a lot of unclear thoughts. The one that I would love to see in that backs line, I'm not 100% sure if she's fit, but I know she played a couple of weeks ago, was Meg Webb. I think looking back to the World Cup a couple of years ago, Meg Webb was brilliant, offered something that all our centres possibly haven't offered to the extent that they should and could, in that she was able to break on the outside, showed strength and power. And I know she had a serious injury, hasn't quite been the same player coming back yet, but I do think she is one for the future and still could develop. And on Kaylee, to be perfectly honest, I think she offers a running threat from 10, and I do agree with that. I think she is our best fullback, but if she's in a 23, I'd like to see her in the squad because she's such a quality player. And if they are going to go with Jenny and Shaky as 15 and 10, which seems to be the pattern of play, then any way you can get Kaylee Powell on the pitch, the better.
So just because obviously I did end up watching the Scotland game, and Dan, you've dodged a bullet. because the biggest issue for me is nothing has changed in the calendar year. Names have changed, but like the actual style of play and everything is the same. We're still cut up far too easily out wide. Like that was the thing. Scotland, as soon as Scotland realised to stop trying to go through us and go round us, that's when their scores started racking up. When they're trying to go through us, the girls showed excellent effort and held the ball up. And there's the desire there to defend. But the defensive system just seems to always be too narrow. I don't know if that's because we don't seem to have the pace we need in the centres. Maybe that's why we've got, we're putting Cox in as to give us that extra bit of pace. But it's just really frustrating. The attack is completely blunt. Lakey George looks like if you ordered Lakey George from Gloucester off Wish, because the game she's been asked to play just does not seem anything like that. And I've spoken on the women's rap and on rap as well. But I think a big part of the problem is she doesn't have a Mo Hunt and an Emma Singh sort of taking a lot of the problems out for her, and she doesn't have a Tatty and her does one to on the inside, at 12 to release pressure, and it's just like, and I am genuinely worried that WXV is going to be more of the same. And I feel like we'll end up with a Kingsley Jones and Canada situation where we're just going to end up Ewan because the WU can't find anyone else. But I mean, something needs to change after the Six Nations, and it didn't. Something looks like it's going to need to change at the end of this, and I don't think it will.
The thing that worries me a little bit about WXV2 is WXV1. There was a key, obvious element of failure about it. You play against some of the best sides. Okay, you lose against New Zealand. Fair enough. You can't really have a go about that. You lose against an Australia side that are down to 13 players for 13 men, as it was being said on the commentary continuously. But moving on, for 20 minutes, and they were down to 13 players for 20 minutes, down to 14 for the majority of the game. That should have been a win. That was a disappointment, not to say the least, if not a failure. This campaign, they're not going to finish bottom of that group, I don't think. I'm pretty confident they'll get a win somewhere. So you look at that. I don't agree with the thing that there's no one else as an option. I think there's quite an obvious alternative option. I'm a big fan of Yohan, and I'm not trying to suggest that they get rid of him. But, if that gets to a stage where his position becomes untenable, surely you're calling up Sean Lynn at Gloucester. You've got a Welsh coach who's coached the women's side at Gloucester Hartpury to back-to-back titles, has been a key part in implementing what's going on there at Hartpury University, and the linear progression there just seems obvious to me. But perhaps I'm in the minority. But yeah, I think he's, see what happens at WXV2, but I think that has to be the obvious option. If things do go pear-shaped, I don't see how they can't give him a call because of how well he's been doing. There are plenty of other coaches in Wales doing really well as well. Name check a few, but if you wanted me to, but I won't bore you with it.
Mate, we'll save that for another week because time is running short, and we have to vacate the meeting room, as it were. Unless there are any other bits you wanted to say, Carwyn, you wanted to talk about the real game happening Thursday night?
Oh, Glantave against Colin Cymwaith, huge game. It's just obviously going to mention Glantave. Weirdly enough, I was in my local Sainsbury's. Other supermarket stores are available, and a guy passed me with Glantave's shirt on, wearing number 10 out on his back. So I don't know if he is the outside half or just nicked the jersey for the day to show off in Sainsbury's. But all the best to Glantave. Hopefully they can have a good season again.
Yeah, I see. Dan, anything you want to say? Anything you want to plug before we head off?
It's just to say that the supporters club are running a bus to Scarlets a week Saturday. Details on their socials. The Cardiff Rugby Supporters Club now. So jump on that if you want to get in and out of Turktown as quickly as possible.
Yeah, excellent stuff. We'll do a reminder and we'll share stuff on our socials. So before we finish, I just want to say thank you to Carwyn and Dan for joining me on some very much off-topic discussions, and hopefully some actual useful rugby conversation as well.
Cheers.
It's nice to have an insight into your private life, Harley.
Seriously, the more you find out, the more you don't want to know. All right, anyway, cheers. Thank you all for listening. Bye-bye.
That was the Cardiff Central Podcast. Please rate, review and share us on socials if you can, and join us again next week for more of the same. And until then, enjoy your rugby.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.